afternoon. Welcome to Senate Education. Today is Wednesday, January 11th at 1:30. We're going to kick things off by talking about school meals, child nutrition. We're then going to jump into part one of something I talked to the committee about last week is what does a Vermont education look like? We're going to jump in with around test scores and things like that. And we're going to move to school safety. Everyone may recall yesterday we heard from Secretary French about school safety, and then wrap things up with financial literacy. I don't know if it will take us all the way to 4:30, but that is the schedule. We have Senator Weeks on Zoom who is participating and not feeling so hot, so we appreciate him actually being remote. Yeah. Can you hear us okay, Senator?
I can hear you fine, thank you.
Okay, great, and we can hear you as well. So senators may recall last year we passed a bill that is in session law, which is temporary, as we heard yesterday, reviewing the little expertise I have. And it basically extended universal school meals for 1 year. So things wrap up, I believe, July 1, 2023. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And one of the leaders on this issue is Nora Horton, who is with us today. The other one I always think of is Senator Starr, who really led on this issue. And Nora Horton is with Hunger Free Vermont. Thrilled to have you here. Thrilled to hear sort of just how things are going, what you're seeing, and but also would love to hear a little bit about you and Hunger Free Vermont, since everyone here is, save for me, a new committee member. So with that, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Senator Campion. For the record, I am Nora Horton. I'm the Executive Director of Hunger Free Vermont. It's really a pleasure to be here with all of you today. I'm really excited to be here to tell you all a little bit about the Universal School Meals Act and to let you know really how well it's working right now to end hunger and stigma in our schools and to make healthy meals available to every student at every meal every day in our public schools and some of our independent schools as well. And it's doing this in the most equitable way. And I'm also really excited to be here just to learn what's important to you and what questions you have so that I can get you the answers. And as we work together this session to wrap up this work and make the funding for Vermont's Universal School Meals program permanent in the education fund. And the first thing I want to say is that I'm really able to be here today to talk to you about Universal School Meals because of the great work that was done last year with this committee leading the way. And I especially want to thank Senator Campion for his leadership on this issue. I'm really happy to be back here in this room and back working with this committee again. So most of us are meeting each other for the first time right now. So I am going to start with a little bit about myself and Hunger Free Vermont. And
sorry to interrupt you. I hope
Sure.
I do this again. I just want to let you know, Ms. Horton, that the two individuals from schools have just zoomed in. So when you're ready, they are there great. Watching, and but you're in charge. So whatever works for you.
Okay, thank you so much. Hi, friends. It's very strange to have you in behind me so that I can't see you that way. I guess, yeah, okay. It doesn't make a difference to them if I turn around, only to me. All right, getting used to this hybrid world, or trying to. So Hunger Free Vermont is a statewide nonprofit. We are turning 30 in 2023, and our mission is to end the injustice of hunger and malnutrition for everyone in Vermont. So we do a lot of different kinds of work toward that mission. We work in coalitions to advocate for permanent and dignified solutions to hunger at the federal, state, and local levels. We educate the public about the causes of and the solutions to hunger. We conduct outreach on the federal nutrition programs. So school meals is one set of federal nutrition programs, but there's childcare meals, and there's Meals on Wheels, and there's Free Squares Vermont, and WIC. There are many, many federal nutrition programs, and we work on pretty much all of them. So we do outreach all across Vermont on those programs to help people learn about them and know how they can apply. We provide free and customized consulting and training to the entities like senior centers, community action agencies, food shelves, childcare providers, schools, area agencies on aging, and many more that use the federal nutrition programs in one way or another, or that help people apply to access the federal nutrition programs. We also support 10 regional hunger councils that cover all of the state and a little bit of the Upper Valley of New Hampshire thrown in there for good measure. And they're made up of local community leaders who work on the specific hunger challenges in their regions. And I would like to pause right here to encourage all of you to join your hunger councils because you all have one. You can go to our website and sign up to get information, notices, the agendas, and all of that for those meetings. And you know, Hunger Free Vermont is available to you. We're available to help you help your constituents connect to food resources. And so please use us for that. I live in Williston, and I've been at Hunger Free Vermont for almost 12 years. When I started, I was hired as the manager of our child nutrition programs advocacy and support work. And I was shocked to learn how broken the traditional school meals system was. I really had no idea before I started working at Hunger Free Vermont that the school meal program and the old way that it works segregates kids by family income in the school cafeteria. It causes so much shame and stigma that many low-income students prefer to go hungry than to get the meals that they're eligible for. Many families won't even fill out the intrusive and intimidating application. The eligibility cutoff for free meals is so low that up to 40% of the kids here in our state right now who need school meals don't qualify for free school meals, and they wouldn't be able to get those meals if we didn't have Act 151 in place right now. Universal school meals replaces all of these inequities with dignity, and it ensures that all students can focus and learn, and it relieves social, emotional, and economic stress for kids, families, and educators. And that is why it is my passion. And I want to just give you the overview of what the Universal School Meals Act does. And then maybe we can hear from the experts on the ground a little bit about what's happening in one school district in Vermont right now with universal meals. So the Universal School Meals Act is not a very complicated bill, although there is very precise and technical language in that policy that's really important because it ensures that Vermont's Universal School Meals program works with the complicated federal rules that govern school meal programs and govern federal reimbursements for school meals. But what it does is it created a one-year universal school meals program that provides free breakfast and lunch to all public school students. And that 1 year is the current school year that we're in. Also, approved independent schools that are physically located in Vermont can participate in the one-year Universal School Meals program if they choose to for those students who attend their school on public tuition dollars. Vermont's Education Fund supplements the federal per meal reimbursement so that school meal programs receive the full free rate amount for each meal that they serve. And that rate, the rate of reimbursement is set by the federal government, and the Universal School Meals Act in Vermont just uses that same free reimbursement rate as the rate per meal. It covers every breakfast and lunch that are served to students that meet the federal nutrition rules that don't qualify for the full free rate of federal reimbursement. It makes up the difference between the federal reimbursement for that meal and the total free reimbursement rate for that meal. And Act 151 also created a one-year moratorium on the ability of a school district to ask for an exemption from participation in a school meals program. In other words, Right now in Vermont, for the first time ever, every single public school is providing breakfast and lunch to all students because the act required the last two schools that weren't doing that to find a way to do it. And they did find a way to do it, and they're doing it now. So that is how the Universal School Meals Program works. And I have a few broad things to say about the benefits, but I think where you're really going to get clear about what the benefits are is from listening to the superintendent and the school food program co-director for the Harwood Union Unified School District, and they joined me. So I think I'll hand it over to them.
Turn it over to them. Terrific. Mr. Superintendent,
Sure.
I'd like to start, and then Ms. Dolan, if you want to follow up, whatever order you'd like to go in.
Sure. And I provided a full copy of my remarks to the committee, so feel free to reference those. And I'll try to be brief in my remarks, but I do want to thank the chairman and the members of the committee for having us. We think that Act 151 is a tremendous opportunity for schools throughout Vermont. And we're so pleased to hear that you're considering the program for future years. My name is Mike Licklider. I'm the superintendent of the school district, and we're right here in Washington County. In fact, I'm at Brookside Primary School today. Both principals are at a training, so I'm the substitute elementary principal. So if the bell rings or a little student comes in, you'll understand. But this is my first year as a superintendent in Harwood. It's my first year in Vermont. We moved to South Duxbury at the end of June, but I have been a superintendent. I've been a principal and a teacher for over 30 years. We moved from Pennsylvania for the last 13 years. I was a school superintendent in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, in a school district of about 5,400 students. So I've had a lot of experience in lunches, working with students and families to make sure that we have all students who are fed. One of the reasons my wife and I contemplated a move to Vermont based on a long history of traveling here, having a daughter who most recently was a student at the University of Vermont, is just because of your commitment to children and the climate of the state. And I think this is the most recent example I have that makes me proud to be a superintendent in this area right now. I have three very specific examples I can give you related to the positive differences that this program has made for our students right here in Harwood. I can tell you that if you speak to any one of the principals in this district, you will have big champions for continuing this program. I can also tell you from just being in cafeteria duty with primary school children that I mentioned to the three cafeteria workers that I was going to be testifying to you, and they said to let you know that the three cafeteria workers at Brookside and Waterbury, Vermont are fully supportive of the program as well. But just three examples I can give to you. They are real life examples. I've changed names and a little bit of the circumstances just to protect the families. But the 3 points I want to make is, number one, that many of our students do not eat breakfast and they come to school hungry. And as educators, we know, as classroom teachers, principals, that a full stomach guarantees that we can focus on education and teaching the student the most important elements of the day, whether it's reading or math or art or any of the other experiences that students have. Prior to the pandemic, this school district, and Erica, who is just a wonderful, does a wonderful job with our food service program, worked very hard to increase breakfast participation with little results. We had some students who took advantage of it, but it was a smaller number, and in spite of all their efforts, they could not increase that number. With the pandemic, with universal meals, we've seen our numbers for breakfast almost double. This morning, as our students walk in here, the staff has done a great job. The students get off the bus and walk in. We hand them a meal if they want one. They go to class, they sit in their class, they have their breakfast, and that makes a big difference in the lives of many of our students. Let me talk to you about Sam. Sam is a young student. He's in third grade. His mom often struggles to get him out of bed in the morning, get him to the bus stop in time to get the bus. It's very common for him to skip breakfast. So he comes to school hungry. He also has some disruptive behaviors that he can show in the classroom. And as the teacher and the principal really worked to understand Sam and some of these behaviors, they realized that they're directly tied to him being hungry. He displays those behaviors when he has not eaten. So what this program has done is really has allowed the school to ensure that he can get a meal every day, that he doesn't have to worry about whether his mom can pay for that meal, but they can provide for him. If you talk to students, if you talk to teachers at the school, you'll also learn that many of our teachers buy snacks in the grocery store on a regular basis for their students, especially in the past, who come to school who are hungry, so that they can give them something to eat to have them focus on reading and the lesson of the day. So Sam, because of that, has developed an amazing relationship with our cafeteria chef in that building. He really has latched on to this person and looks to her because of her love and support for him. So I think this is an example of eating breakfast at school really makes a difference in the life of a child, and especially makes a difference because of the fact that he can focus on his classes. The second example I'll give you, and this goes under the category of teenagers often choose not to eat due to the social stigma of a free lunch. I've seen this as a teacher, I've seen it as a principal, I've seen it as a superintendent. I was recently talking to one of our administrators at Harwood Union Middle School, High School, and the one principal gave me an example of a student I'll call Sydney. She's a teenager. She relies on our Harwood cafeteria as her only reliable food source every day. She recently spoke to one of the principals while she was in the lunch line and said that this has made a big difference to her, this program, because she said it makes it easier for her to get lunch as opposed to the other years when it was the perception of many students and their classmates that only the free kids stand in line for lunch. So that often that social stigma would cause her to not eat, to not get lunch. So she said the fact that it's known that everyone can have a free lunch makes a big difference as part of this universal program. And that has has an effect in our number of lunches. While our breakfasts have nearly doubled, lunches have not doubled, but there's been a significant increase that Eric can talk to you about as well. So for teenagers, it's a very important program as well. And then finally, I'd say that we have many struggling families who do not meet the federal free and reduced lunch criteria. And I'll give you the example of the Smith family. They have 3 children. Prior to the pandemic, they would historically carry a very high lunch debt every year. Both parents work. One of the parents holds multiple jobs. They have 3 growing children who eat a lot of food. And they're kids who are really good kids in our school. They work hard. They get along with others. They do everything that we would want a child to do in our school system. But lunch and paying for lunch has been a challenge for this. It was always a sticky point for the relationship that the school had with the family. It was often heartbreaking for the cafeteria worker who ran the register to tell the one student that your lunch account's in the negative. When the principal had to speak with the parent about it, the parent would also often say, I forgot to check this week. I'll bring it in next week. But the principal knew that it was a challenge for the family in spite of them being just hardworking Vermonters. So this program has made a difference in the life of that family, that's not something that child has to worry about when they walk into the cafeteria, having that lunch person say, you know what, you're out of money. We'll still provide a lunch, but you'll need to bring in a check later. As an educator, I believe that our free public schools are a hallmark of our nation. When our kids come in the morning, there's no cash registers at the door asking them to pay in order to learn to read. So I just asked the committee to consider that as we decide whether we should really have a cash register in the cafeteria as kids get lunch so that they can focus on learning. So, I really appreciate your emphasis. I appreciate the advocacy of Hunger Free Vermont. And Erica is the expert on the cafeteria. She does a wonderful job. We invite any of you who want to see our program to visit, to come, let us know. We'd be glad to provide a lunch or breakfast and let you spend some time with some of our students in the cafeteria. So, Erica.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. First of all, thank you so much for having us here. This is a great opportunity. I had testified before to other committees, and this is just a privilege that we are proud that we can be the experts, I guess. My name is Erica Dola. I'm the Harwood Union School District Food and Nutrition Co-Director. I've been with Harwood now for 15 years. Prior to consolidation, I was with from 11 years with the Waterbury-Duxbury School District, and I have been with the Harwood for 4 years now, with a total of 15 years. So I live a long time with meals that were not free to students. And I have, experienced the stigma that we've been all talking about in between students, and the hardships the families that do not qualify for free meals pass through all those years. I would like to start that since my first day as a director, I had the dream that meals would be free. I had spoke freely and out loud about this from day one, that would be one dream that I had before I retired in 30 years. So I still have at least 17 years here. So I think I have to find another project now, another goal. So it's pretty impressive that we were able to accomplish this with your help so fast. I'm very, very thankful. I couldn't say enough. It's hard to believe that something so devastating like COVID ignite this movement. So I have to say thank you to COVID a little bit for this. So what can I say about our district? We have very low we traditionally have very low participation of free and reduced kids. So the main meals that we always serve were to kids that were paid. So we had a very high percentage of kids that do not qualify for free meals. Over the years, well, let's start from the beginning. When I first started here, we used to have a model that every time the kid came to the lunch line and they had a negative balance, we would tell the kid, either give them a little paper or say, you have a negative balance, you got to bring this note home. Or we were always telling the kid once they get their tray. So the register person was trained to tell this child that they had a negative balance, that their account was in the negative. So this child went through the lunch line, got their little note, went to sit, and was carrying that burden, their family burden, in their shoulders. And I thought that was devastating. So that was one of the first things I advocated to change in the Waterbury Duxbury School District, that no kid should ever receive a note at the register before they get their meals. So with them, we've heavily sent bills out. Back in the day, we used to mail them with paper, and then we suddenly moved quickly to emails. But as you can imagine, I became a bill collector. So part of my job was to collect bills, to make phone calls, to ensure that parents were paying their bills. And that took a lot of my time, hours per week. And it wasn't just me. All the principals that came through this building also helped in this process. Sometimes we used to divide the list, and the list was pretty big and the bills were accumulating. And no matter what we did, it seems that problem was always there. And we helped the families fill up applications. We helped them ensure that they could qualify for free meals. We did our work. And it was a lot of time that I was spent not taking care of nutrition, not taking care of kids, but taking care of money, of cash. And then suddenly, now we're free. And I don't need to do that anymore. And I know I'm talking a little bit about myself, and I'm going to go into the kids here, but I want to put that out, that we are no longer bill collectors right now, and we are investing, we are creating, we actually have some time to improve our programs, to market it, to make it better, to invest in our local economy with the food incentive grants. So part of school meals, and meals are very healthy, local, and fresh. So we want to spend our time doing that. We want to spend our time investing in what kids need the most. And they do not need us to be spending our time calling parents regarding to that. So that's a big part of how this was affecting me personally in the job that I do. One thing that we always talk about here is that kids are not paying for anything else in the school. And Dr. Mike mentioned that before, that we don't have registers at the entrance of the schools. And we education in this country, in this state, had become something that we provide to kids. Providing to their well-being, providing for them to be whole, to be a human being, to give it back to their community, to, full circle as an adult. That became something that is, we all can agree, any educator can agree that we provide way more than just classroom education, and like in between math and English and languages. We are providing wellness, physical education. We provide even driver's ed to students. Providing meals is no different. Meals are part of education as everything else. I know that this has not been the culture of the country or the culture of the state, that meals are part of education in that sense, but it shouldn't be anything different. I have a daughter in 9th grade, and I live in Barrytown, by the way. I didn't say that for the record in the beginning. So I'm resident of Barrytown, and I have a daughter in 9th grade at Spalding High School. So I told her yesterday that I was going to come, and she was a page last year in the State House. So I talked to her yesterday that I was going to come, talk to you guys today. And I asked her, so what does it change for you? How is it different in your world that meals are free now? And she stopped for a little bit. She wasn't too sure how to answer. And then she said, well, it's hard to say what I'm going to say, but it's almost like it's the law that we have to be educated. I cannot just drop off school right now. There will be consequences for all of us if I'm not at school right now. And everything is provided to me. Meals are no different. They should, and it was good that she used the same word that I always use, the provision of meals. And she said, it's almost like it's mandatory that we're there. I know it's not that way. That's not the right word that I want to say, but we have to be there. And meals, I would not make through my day if I didn't have meals. So that was kind of her little way to say that she couldn't learn if she wasn't fed. And I believe that she's in that category, that she's taking way more meals like every day now, because they're free than otherwise. So I'm very happy that I don't need to be worrying about her going to school and being hungry, because she is getting what she needs to be able to learn. One thing that happened at Harwood High School that is very interesting, and it ties back to the register again. We decided as Harwood High School, actually in all the schools, but Harwood majority, because we used to sell a lot of a la carte items to students at Harwood High School. We decided that we were not selling anything. There's not even one single student that can purchase one single item in our schools. So our cafeterias are not selling anything. There is no money transactions. Only the teachers are buying meals, breakfast and lunch, but no student. We have no transactions, because a la carte items just goes back to the same problem that we are identifying who has the money and who doesn't have the money to pay. So we move away from that at Harwood, and I'm proud that we made that choice. So I think my ask is to make the universal meals permanent in the education fund. I have, I'm available to answer any questions right now, but I think you got my, where my passion really is. Thank you. I appreciate it.
It was great testimony, both of you. Thanks very much. Committee, we are, and for those watching and here, we're just really jumping into this today. This will be a longer conversation. We're going to look at, the education budget and other pressures on it, if you will, over the next few weeks. But this is a terrific way to kick things off. Any questions at this point for any of our guests? Senator Hashim.
I just wanted to put my own plug in for universal school meals, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Probably one of the most impactful things that I did during my campaign was going to a school, Bellows Falls, that had universal school meals, and we sat down with a big table of students from all sorts of different backgrounds. And, the thing that they all shared in common was what a positive impact the school meals, the universal school meals had on their performance, their ability to pass their driver's tests. And so it was really awesome. And, I'd encourage anyone and everyone who's a legislator to go to a school that does this program to talk to the students and really see what type of impact it has.
No, I appreciate that. I would also add, I think, I love the connection between local farms. I love
That
that
too.
economic connection. And also, I do believe if young people are eating well early on in their lives, it's going to prevent illness in the future and perhaps less stress on our healthcare system down the road. So, other questions before we move on? Any final comments from you, Ms. Gorman?
Just a couple of things.
Please, absolutely.
So, Hunger Free Vermont is an anti-hunger organization. So I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say a quick word about what is happening in our state with hunger and the relationship between that and the difference that Universal School Meals is making right now. We have never seen hunger and food insecurity at the rates that people in Vermont are experiencing them right now. In the last 12 months in our state, according to research from UVM Faculty Research Group, 2 in 5 people in Vermont have reported experiencing food insecurity to some degree. That's 40% of our folks. And for families with children, the rate is even higher than that. And so the Farm Fresh School Meals for All package, which includes universal school meals, the local food purchasing incentive, which you heard Erica speak about, and the Farm to School and Early Childhood Grants program that provides technical assistance to help schools and farms connect with each other. That's a piece of the food security puzzle for our families. It's a really important piece right now. All of the other pandemic economic emergency relief programs have already gone away or they're going away, including the emergency increased allotments for 3 Squares Vermont, which are going to be ending in a month. And what's left for some of these families now is universal school meals. That is a one little floorboard under their ability to meet their basic needs. And we've heard from a lot of parents about the relief that the existence of this program as a stable source of meals for their kids is for them. And I just want to make sure that I name that. The Agency of Education is working on the kind of hard and specific data, and I'm going to let them do that. But I do want to say that we're seeing increased participation by students this year in school meals. We're seeing increased purchasing of local food by schools. There are links between the way that Vermont designed the Universal School Meals program that's in place right now and our ability to maximize other federal dollars like pandemic EBT payments for this school year and this coming summer. Vermont has just been accepted into a pilot to directly certify students for free meals through Medicaid. And that's going to actually really allow the program to draw down more federal funding starting next year. And there's a little bit of positive sign at the federal level. This might be the last time I'm going to say this for a little while, but that there will be some changes, administrative changes to the federal universal school meals provisions that are going to allow more schools in Vermont to do universal school meals more easily and perhaps draw down additional federal funding as well. So this is a national movement that Vermont is a leader in. And, that's a really exciting thing.
Senator Gould.
Oh, sorry.
No, please.
Okay, I just had a quick question. the Medicaid program, is that also a program that kind of covers costs that aren't covered for folks who don't get free and reduced lunch? Is that sort of a similar, does it cost am I making sense? I might not be.
I'm not quite clear what you're
So there
asking.
are those students who are able to get free lunches through the free and reduced lunch program,
Mhm.
correct? Okay, and then there are those who don't qualify.
Yes.
Would the Medicaid program that you just mentioned cover those students? How would it, I guess I'm asking what
Yeah.
its relationship would be with free and
Yes.
reduced lunch?
So no, it won't. The Medicaid, directly certifying students for free meals through Medicaid will not help the students in families who are over income for school meals count as low income for school meals, but it will identify more students who are being missed right now. And that will allow the schools providing universal meals to count more students as eligible for the free rate. And therefore it will mean that the program is paid for more with federal dollars and less with state dollars.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, you're welcome. It's all very complicated and it's taken me 12 years and I still am learning. So no problem. I also just want to say, you know, for members of this committee, you all in your districts that you represent present a really good example of what is typical for what's our situation in our Vermont school districts, where what's not only without universal school meals, not only do we not have equity among students in a given school, but all schools in a district can't provide universal school meals necessarily. So we have students, you know, in the same family who are going to different schools in the same district, and one kid can have universal meals and the others can't under the pre-pandemic system. And within your districts, you have a lot of inequity among your towns. So for the Rutland district, for the Bennington district, for the Wyndham district, you all have one large town, and in that town you have a sufficient kind of concentration of population and therefore of low-income families where all or at least some of your schools were offering universal meals before the pandemic, and they were able to provide universal meals in those larger towns without a lot of additional cost on the local taxpayer. But all the rest of your districts are rural towns with small schools, and none of them were able to provide universal school meals in that way. And then for Senator Gulick, your district, so the Winooski schools and almost some, but not all of the Burlington schools have been able to provide universal school meals at no additional cost to taxpayers for many years. But Colchester and Essex are not able to do that on their own in the same way. And so Act 151 really transformed that system where, you know, you don't have to explain to your constituents, and superintendents don't have to explain to parents why it is that students in one town have universal meals, but students in another town can't. And that is, we wanted to really, you know, make permanent this transformation that we've had in equity in our school systems with universal meals.
Great. We do have another guest who needs
Yes.
to jump in because we've slotted about an hour for this. Any final comments from you?
Yeah, well, I do want to close by acknowledging Vermont's Agency of Education. They have really worked incredibly hard to successfully transition all public schools in Vermont to universal meals this year. I just want to acknowledge them because without their efforts, we would never get here. And I want to thank this committee for designing a bill that's working really well right now. And I'm really looking forward to continuing to work with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kruger.
Great.
Ms. Kruger, before you begin, I do want to tell you and the committee that you are just really recognized public servant by so many people in between this committee and the Agriculture Committee for your dedication and everything you do around school nutrition. And so I hope you know that, but if you don't, or even if you do, I'm telling you again how much everybody appreciates your work. So with that,
Thank you.
the floor is yours.
Appreciate hearing that. So for the record, Rosie Kruger, I'm the State Director of Child Nutrition Programs at the Agency of Education. I manage a team of about 8.5 people at the agency who manage all the child nutrition programs in Vermont. And these are federal programs. So we are the state agency that implements these federal programs. There are extensive federal regulations around how they have to be implemented. So we will often hear like, well, why don't we just do it this way or make things simpler or eliminate this piece of paperwork? And while we would love to do that, we can't do that if we want to continue to draw down the federal funds. The report on universal school meals, which I am frantically writing, we just got the data that we need for the first few months of the school year to be able to get you some real analysis of how things are working and what the money looks like, which I know is something you're particularly curious about. So I'm not really going to talk about that at all today. Instead, I want to give you kind of a foundation about school meals and the federal child nutrition programs. And I want to point you in the direction of some resources where you can learn more so that when we come back to you with that report and start to have conversation about what's next, you've got a real solid understanding and don't, you know what the abbreviations mean and all of that. So as I mentioned, these are federal programs. The big one is the National School Lunch Program and the School Breakfast Program. We also have a couple of other school nutrition programs. The Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program, which provides a fresh fruit or vegetable snack outside of meal times in low-income schools and elementary schools, and the after-school snack service, which also provides an after-school snack. And then we have the Summer Meals Program, which provides meals when school is out of session during the summer, but also actually during emergency situations and disaster situations when school is closed. And we use that extensively during COVID. And then we have the Child and Adult Care Food Program, which provides meals to kids in childcare, as you might guess, both in childcare centers and daycare homes, as well as in adult day centers. And we just have a few of those in the state. And that program also can be used to provide meals to kids in emergency shelters. We don't currently do that. And it can also be used to provide at-risk after-school suppers in low-income communities. And then in addition, our team also operates the USDA Foods Program, which is food that the federal government purchases to support all of these programs, as well as to support vulnerable folks through food pantries. So a lot of that food comes through the Agency of Education, but goes directly to the Vermont Food Bank for distribution to their partners. So that is what my team is doing, is kind of implementing all of those federal programs and the funds that go along with them. We do have some state law around these programs. So we do have a state law that requires public schools to offer breakfast and lunch through the National School Lunch Program. Prior to Act 151, there was an exemption process, and we had 2 schools in the state who were using that exemption process and not offering those meals to their students. Act 151 temporarily eliminated that exemption process, as you heard from Anor, and those schools are now offering it. But that's definitely something to think about as you're moving forward in terms of whether you want to return to how things were previously or continue that, that requirement.
Yeah. Are there, and I'm sorry if you've already said this, are there nutritional standards? In other words, I do remember once going into a school, I mean, this was many, many years ago, where the lunch that was served many years ago wasn't what I would want to have as, you know, if I'm a little one, but even at my age, there was just, didn't really, a lot of sugars.
So that's a great question. About 10 to 12 years ago, through the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act, things really changed drastically in the federal regulations. And so at that point, there had been some standards before that, but at that point, We had a requirement put into place that all the grain items be whole grain rich, that fruits and that at least a half a cup of fruit or vegetable be part of every meal. The vegetables, you have to offer a range of different vegetables over the course of the week. So not just your red orange, but also your dark green vegetables and all the other vegetable types over the course of the week. There's some sodium restrictions, and there are some calorie limits over the course of the week.
And who changed? Is that federal
That is
guidelines?
federal.
Could the state become stricter if it wanted to?
So we actually, we
Are we in pretty good shape, from your
We're,
opinion?
we're in pretty good shape, in my opinion.
Yeah.
We have, the federal government actually did roll back a few standards a little bit, and we maintained the whole grain rich requirement at a time that the federal government actually rolled that back. We're on a little bit shaky ground to the extent that we put in a lot of different requirements, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One is the federal government is not real happy about us withholding reimbursement for meals that meet their meal pattern. So we could withhold our state funds if we had a stricter meal pattern, but that would be, in some areas they might let us do it, in some areas they wouldn't. So that would have to be something we'd want to do in consultation with them. The other piece of it is a lot of the child nutrition program foods, the producers who make those foods are making them to the federal standard. So those sodium restrictions, those whole grain restrictions, the labeling that you need to prove that this item meets those requirements, that's all kind of producers reacting to national requirements. And so if we were to try to do something to, like, you know, target sodium even more or do something else, our folks like Erica would have a much harder time shopping. It would be much more difficult for her to purchase the items that she needs to meet the meal pattern. So it's definitely a conversation we can have, but there are very strict federal requirements in place. And if you haven't gone to eat school lunch at school in the last 10 years, I would really strongly encourage you to do it because it looks very, very different. It is not, you know, it's changed significantly since I was in school. We go out on my team and we're reviewing schools all the time, and I'm always happy to eat school meals at school.
That's right.
They're good meals, and I'm really proud of those meals. But yeah, there are strict federal requirements. We couldn't do things like, I do hear sometimes folks ask if we can serve whole milk, and it's federal requirement that we can't serve whole milk. So if we tried to offer whole milk, then again, we'd be risking.
Not unpasteurized or whole milk?
No,
Because
fat
we're talking
content.
about fat content.
Yeah. So there are some, you know, we could, for example, Erica was talking about a la carte items, so selling meals outside of the meal pattern. That's that, you know, that additional slice of pizza or bag of chips or whatever. There are states that are more restrictive about those. We don't have stricter requirements on those. We leave those up to the schools, but that is an area where if you wanted to, you could theoretically do more in that area. We have heard, like Eric was mentioning, a lot of schools now this year with universal meals moving away from offering a la carte completely as a result of being able to offer all the meals for free and no longer needing to support their programs with those a la carte purchases. So yes, there is a strict federal meal pattern, and almost every other thing that you can think of about the program is covered by strict federal regulations. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about those. So going back to our state laws, we do require that schools participate. And again, that exemption process was eliminated this year. We also have a state law that requires that summer meals be offered in the highest poverty districts when they're offering summer programming. That's an area, you know, you could look at whether, you know, we definitely see fewer summer meals offered than or summer meals provided than school year. And I think summer is definitely an area for growth. The federal rules around that do make it somewhat challenging in that only the highest poverty areas are able to offer open summer meal sites where students can take meals for free. We provide a little bit of state funding to support summer meals, but that amount has not grown in recent years. So that's something that you could think about looking at in the future. We also have a state law that, prior to universal meals this year, that permanently provided state funding to cover the difference between reduced price meals and free meals. So you've got three categories of meals in the federal meals programs. Free meals are traditionally served at no cost to the family, and those are available to kids who are under 130%, whose households are under 130% of the federal poverty level, or students who are directly certified, and this is a word you're going to hear a lot, directly certified for free school meals because their household participates in some other means tested program. And so the biggest program there is 3 Squares Vermont, which is known federally as SNAP. So any household who participates in 3 Squares Vermont, we get that information from DCF, we share it with the school, and the school directly certifies that student for free meals without the household having to submit an application. There are a couple of other categories of direct certification, which allow the household to receive free meals without requiring the household to submit an application. And then the other option is for the household to submit that application, showing that they make less than 130% of the federal poverty level. That's the free category. The reduced category is for students between 130 and 185% of the federal poverty level. And it's called reduced price because traditionally the federal government doesn't reimburse 40 cents of that meal, and they expect the household 40 cents for lunch and 30 cents for breakfast. They expect the household to contribute that share. In Vermont, for many years, the state has picked up that cost, and it's been, frankly, a fairly nominal amount of money. I think $500,000 is budgeted, and we end up spending less than that. But there's still the category. They're still called reduced price students, even though the meals are provided to those kids at no charge. There right now are no direct certification processes for the reduced price category. It's just households submitting an application. As Honor mentioned, the state was just approved for the direct certification through Medicaid pilot. That will start on July 1st of this year. That will allow us to directly certify 2 categories of students. So we'll be able to directly certify students for free school meals based on their participation in Medicaid if their Medicaid information shows they're under 130% of federal poverty. And we will also be able to directly certify a reduced price category of students for those kids between 130 and 185%. And that is brand new, that we've never been able to directly certify that category before. Those are those 2 categories. And then there's this whole other group that is considered paid. Now, the assumption is always, well, these families must be wealthy, but really all we know about these families is that they have not submitted an application. So we don't have any information showing that they are eligible for free or reduced, therefore they're paid. And so those are that's what, when we're talking about free, reduced, and paid, that's what we're talking about. I do want to kind of briefly, I guess, I'll continue through talking about the couple of other state laws we have, but then I want to return to that and talk a little bit about the idea of stigma, because things may have changed on that front as well, with regard to what folks remember from many years ago. So the state pays for the reduced price share of student meals for breakfast and lunch. We do not pay for the reduced price share of student meals for after school snack. After school snack is a very small program, and compared to the meals we serve for breakfast and lunch, but that is an area where we don't pay it at the state level. A number of schools do chip in for that and just cover it for their students, but that is potentially a component to think about there. And then we also have a state law, as was referenced earlier, the Local Foods Incentive Grant Program. That's now in its 2nd year, and that's managed by my team. We currently have $500,000 appropriated for that. That's a 2-tier grant program. The first tier of that grant program is pretty simple. Schools do a couple of different things, and then they qualify for, I believe, 15 cents per meal served in the prior year for an additional reimbursement. They're only eligible for that for 1 year. Once they've received that, they have to move on to tier 2 if they want to continue to receive the funds. Tier 2 is much stricter. That is a specific percentage local purchasing requirement. They have to purchase a certain amount of their total foods locally. And if they do that and they meet that threshold and they're audited by us, then they get a certain amount of additional per plate reimbursement, depending on that percentage. So we're now in year 2. We've had a whole bunch of schools who've made it through year 1 and a small number of schools who've made it through year 2 to get that year 2 grant. And then we still have some schools who never applied for year 1. They still could if they'd like to in the future. We'll be presenting a full report to you on that shortly. I think it's due at the end of the month, but we do have that ready potentially to present to you sooner than that. So that's a state law. And then we also provide about $50,000 for state equipment grants to school nutrition programs as well. And that's been on many years thing that we have done. We also have some additional state funding in the form of state match, which is federally required. And we do, I mentioned, we provide about a small amount of state summer funds as well to support those some of these programs. So that's what the state does on top of those big federal requirements. I'm looking at the clock here. So I am happy to answer general questions that you have. If you don't have general questions, I think I might like to spend a minute talking about stigma. And then maybe if we have some time talking about CEP and Provision 2 and how those work, or I can refer you to the Universal Meals Report from last year to learn.
Under Weeks.
One question for the summer programs. You said,
Yeah.
that's okay.
My apologies.
You said that some schools that have a summer program, what type of programs are you talking about?
Yeah.
If we have a recreation program with the Fulton High School.
Yeah, so it'll be to take different forms in different places. So if it is a high poverty area, USDA calls these area eligible locations, then you can have an open meal site where students show up at the library, at a food truck, at a park, and receive a meal there. Under the normal federal requirements, they have to eat the meal right there. That has been waived for the past few years because of COVID, but that waiver is gone. So we're going to have to return to in-person congregate feeding this summer. Although the omnibus appropriations bill that Congress passed added a non-congregate option for rural areas, and we're still waiting to learn how that's going to work. So that's what it may look like in low-income areas. And then if a school has some kind of enrichment activity happening over the summer, summer programming, like you're talking about, sports camps, whatever, they can also offer a program to those students. They can either do that as an open program where those students go participate in this open meal site, or it can be a closed enrolled program. And in a closed enrolled program, you can do that in a non-low income area if you base it on the status of the students who are participating in that program. So you can collect applications from them. You're not allowed to charge. So you just need to come up with some funds to cover the cost of those meals served to the.
So is it through a grant? Would they have to apply for a grant for that?
So these are all entitlement programs. So if the program goes through the federal requirements, they sign up with us, they go through, they meet all the paperwork requirements with us, then they go out and try to serve meals. And if they serve a meal that meets those meal pattern requirements, then we reimburse them at a set federal reimbursement rate. So, they could come in and say, well, we don't know how many minutes we're going to serve. Maybe it'll be 50. And then they come back to us and say, well, actually, we serve 75. We'll reimburse them for all 75 meals. So that's how that works. And that rate, that's a set rate. Federal government sets it. Of course, the state could add more to it, but it's not variable.
Thank you.
Please.
So I guess I can just mention there was some discussion about stigma, and I just want to mention that depending on when you went to school, things have changed over many years with child nutrition programs and school meals. And some folks may remember that the free kids got a different colored ticket or a token, or that's called overt identification, and that is strictly prohibited in the school meals programs at this point. So if you're thinking that that's what's happening and that's what's when we're talking about stigma, that isn't happening. It is the school meals program makes every effort to make that information private. That's something that my team reviews when we go out and review. If we see any violation of that, we're very strict about that. So, to the extent that when a child goes through the point of service, the computer may, they may scan their card or enter a PIN number, and it may pop up with a fake balance. just to try and provide that anonymity and make sure that there's no way for family or for kids in line to tell, or even the person at the point of sale to tell what's going on there. But I think you heard, discussion of a la carte, or only the kids who are in line are the ones who are eligible for free meals, and everybody else brings their meals from home. A la carte sales is a really good example where the free and reduced price kids are the ones who are going through and taking that federally required reimbursable meal, and they have to take the fruit or vegetable in order for it to be considered reimbursable. The kids who are paid can, buy whatever they want from their, if their school is offering a la carte sales, and that's just paid for by their household. So maybe they just buy a slice of pizza and they don't have to take the fruit or vegetable. So that's a lot more subtle. Nobody is overtly labeling those kids as free or reduced. And certainly, that's already prohibited in the federal laws. It's already something that we do to make sure it doesn't happen. When you're hearing stigma, those other sources of stigma are what we're talking about. And they're a little bit more difficult to specifically outlaw because it's not something the school is specifically doing.
Committee questions? Again, we're just jumping into this. Ms. Kruger will be back with the final report in weeks to come. But I just wanted you to be able to provide us with a little introduction and some of the work that you do.
Yeah, so I would really encourage you to go back and read the Universal Meals Report that we published last year. I think we may have submitted that as part of our testimony today. That will really give you the basis of kind of what we were talking about going into this, and the problems that we were trying to make sure that you fully understood, so that when you're writing legislation, you can address all of those issues. It's complex. We tried to break it down as much as possible. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have about that as you're going through. But that's really the starting place. And then we'll come back to you with that report about how this is going.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great. Committee, 5 minutes, just take a stretch bathroom break. We'll come back and we'll jump into what we're calling part one, really, of trying to understand what it's like to be educated here in the state of Vermont. And then we'll move on to school safety and financial literacy.